Hi, I'm Marc, and on this channel I talk about Brexit and UK politics. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party, the Tories, suffered a major defeat in two by-elections to the British Parliament. The Tories lost the central constituencies of Mid Bedfordshire and Tamworth, which they had previously held by huge margins, and they lost it to the opposition Labour Party. That's what the BBC reported. The Tories each lost a good 25 percentage points compared to the previous vote in 2019, and Labour leader Keir Starmer spoke of a phenomenal result. This result is seen as another clear indication that the people in the country want a change after 13 years of Tory government. A new parliament is expected to be elected in Great Britain in 2024, and Labour is clearly ahead in all polls. The by-election in Mid Bedfordshire was necessary because former Culture Minister Nadine Dorries resigned amid anger over her Tories' treatment of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Had nothing to do with her not becoming a lady. The constituency had always voted Conservative since 1931. In Tamworth, Chris Pincher had to leave after drunkenly groping two men. The scandal marked the end of Johnson's term in office in 2022. The Conservative Party has lost 8 by-elections before these two since the 2019 general election victory. These by-elections were held in a number of constituencies. We had Brecon and Rednotshire in August 2019, Chesham and Amersham in June 21, North Shropshire in December 21, Wakefield in June 22, Tiverton and Honiton in June 22, Honiton and Tiverton in South and West in February 23, Birmingham, Erdington in March 23, and so on. In addition to these by-election losses, the Conservative Party also lost control of a number of councils in the 2022 local elections. The Conservative Party's recent electoral losses have been attributed to a number of factors, including, of course, the party's handling of Brexit and the cost of living crisis. The party has also been damaged by a number of scandals, including the resignation of Prime Minister Boris Johnson in July 2022, and not to talk about Liz Truss here. It remains to be seen whether the Conservative Party can recover from these setbacks and win the next general election in this way. The Conservative Party's prospects for winning the 2024 general election are currently uncertain, I would say a bit gloomy. The party is facing a number of challenges. The Conservatives are currently trailing the Labour Party in opinion polls, and their leader, Rishi Sunak, is also less popular than Labour leader Keir Starmer, although he is not even a showman. The rising cost of living is a major concern for many voters, and the government is under pressure to do more to help those struggling to make ends meet, but they still don't. And the Conservative Party has been damaged by a number of scandals in recent years, and many voters no longer trust the government to act in their best interests. Many voters are also unhappy with the government's handling of Brexit. The Conservative Party is expected to adopt a populist approach to campaigning for the 2024 general election because of all this. This means that they will focus on appealing to the concerns and anxieties of ordinary people and will try to present themselves as the party that understands and represents the interests of the common man. If you look at these guys, they are not common men. Some of the key elements of the Conservative Party's populist approach are likely to include, for example, the rising cost of living, which is a major concern for many voters, and the Conservatives are likely to focus on this issue in their campaign, however they will do this. They will probably promise to take action to help people with the rising cost of food, fuel, and energy bills. And the Conservatives are likely to emphasize their commitment to British values and traditions. They will portray themselves as the party that is proud of Britain and its history, and that will stand up for British interests. And the Conservatives are likely to criticize the elites in society, such as politicians, bankers, and journalists. They will portray themselves as the party that is on the side of ordinary people and that will fight against the interests of the privileged few, which is a joke if you look at those guys in the Conservative Party. And the Conservatives are likely to use simple and direct language in their campaign. They will avoid using jargon and technical terms and will instead focus on communicating their message in a way that is easy for ordinary people to understand, and just this headline approach again. And the Conservative Party's populist approach is likely to be effective in appealing to some voters at least. However, it is also likely to alienate others who may find the party's rhetoric to be divisive and simplistic. The success of the Conservative Party's campaign will depend on whether they can strike the right balance between appealing to their core supporters and reaching out to a wider audience. They might promise to cut taxes for working families while raising taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations, which will not go down well with their own people. And they might pledge to invest in public services such as the NHS and education, while also promising to reduce government wasting of money and inefficiency. But they had 13 years to do that. And they might talk about the importance of British values, as I said, and promise to crack down on immigration. And that will be a very big one, I'm afraid, as I have seen in recent months already. It's important to note that populism is not a new phenomenon, and it has been used by politicians of all stripes throughout history. We in Germany know this very well. However, it has become increasingly popular in recent years as a result of growing dissatisfaction with the political establishment and a sense that the elites are out of touch with the concerns of ordinary people. The Conservative Party's populist approach is likely to be a key feature of the 2024 general election campaign. And as I said, it remains to be seen whether this approach will be successful, but it is sure to be a major talking point in the months and years to come. And migration policy is one of the big issues here. And now, a good 2 months after the discovery of a pathogen, the British government is again allowing migrants to be accommodated on a multi-story residential ship, for example. A bus drove several asylum seekers to the port of the southern English city of Portland, where the BB Stockholm is anchored, as the British news agency PA reported on Thursday. In mid-August, 39 people were taken off board after Legionella levels were found in samples from the water system of that ship. The Conservative government wants to accommodate a total of up to 500 people on the BB Stockholm until their asylum procedure is decided. With the controversial measure, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to solve a space problem when accommodating irregular migrants and avoid high costs for hotel rooms, although the Stockholm thing is really expensive. In addition, people should be deterred from the dangerous journey across the English Channel in small boats. A Home Office spokeswoman in London said all tests for bacteria had been completed and improved fire safety protocols had been put in place before the restart. According to information from the Telegraph newspaper, 29 of the original 39 asylum seekers were supposed to live on the ship. The others had found alternative accommodation options, as they put it. Around 30 people demonstrated in front of the harbour against accommodation on the ship. And one poster emphasized there, "Paint the prison barge, welcome refugees." At least Sunak is cutting a better figure in terms of foreign policy, albeit in a very serious situation. Numerous heads of state and government are traveling to Israel these days, of course, to pledge their support, and this including British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He condemns the Hamas terror from which the Palestinians also suffered, and he praises the planned humanitarian aid for Gaza. That's why British Prime Minister Sunak has arrived in Israel for a visit. Upon his arrival in Tel Aviv, Sunak condemned the Hamas October 7th attack as an unspeakable and horrific act of terrorism. Great Britain stands on Israel's side. First, Sunak met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A meeting with head of state Isaac Herzog was also on the agenda. In the last 2 weeks, this country has gone through something that no country, no people should have to go through, least of all Israel, is what Sunak said as a press conference. Britain supports Israel's right to self-defense in accordance with international law. I know that you are taking every precaution to avoid harming civilians, unlike the Hamas terrorists, is what Sunak said about this. The scenes from the past few days would have shocked everyone. And we mourn the loss of every innocent life, civilians of every faith, of every nationality who were killed, Sunak said rightly. And we also recognize that the Palestinians are also victims of Hamas. This is our darkest hour. It is the darkest hour in the world. We must stand together and win. That's what Netanyahu said after his conversation with Sunak. There will be ups and downs, there will be difficulties. A long war lies ahead for Israel. We need your continued support, said Netanyahu. This is not just Israel's fight, it's the fight of the free world, the fight for the future, he said. It's a fight against the modern barbarians, the worst monsters on the planet. And Sunak pledged renewed support for the country amid the Gaza war. We will stand with Israel, he said. And he also welcomed Israel's announcement that it would not hinder humanitarian aid deliveries from Egypt to the Gaza Strip. Sunak's visit follows visits to Israel by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and US President Joe Biden, for example. Scholz traveled to Tel Aviv on Tuesday, and Biden arrived there a day later. On Thursday, German Federal Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock also set off on another trip to the Middle East. According to London, British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly was also scheduled to visit Egypt, Turkey and Qatar in the following days. In view of the war, Great Britain announced that it would increase the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people by an additional £10 million. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.